beautiful souls. It's Robin, and you're listening to the Live Life Balance podcast. I'm so excited that you dropped by today, prioritizing you and your wellness. This podcast is for my empty nester mamas, women who are getting close to this new chapter, who have dipped one toe in, or who are fully embracing this new phase. This is for the mamas who are ready to take back their health, to live their best lives. If you're looking for an authentic, supportive community, you're definitely in the right place. It's a space for us to learn how to prioritize ourselves again. I'll be your guide, pointing you to ideas and tools that you can experiment with to see what feels good for you. You'll also hear guests talking about their journeys and what's worked for them. Together, we're going to learn how to use the 1% shift method to create little shifts and habits that, who knows, maybe become your non-negotiables to feel your best. By feeling our best, we can show up in our purpose and live the most joyful life, even in the challenging times. And boy, this new chapter can seem challenging, but I can assure you we're not alone. Some of the topics we're going to talk about are self-love, self-care, nutrition, daily toxins, food swaps, mindset, and reframing our thoughts. I hope you leave each time feeling a little more empowered and at ease to take a step or two that will allow you to shine. Are you ready? If you said yes, take a nice deep breath and say, I am ready. Now let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today we're going to be having a conversation with Jorge Gonzalez, who's a multifaceted entrepreneur. He's an inventor, an author, and a motivational speaker. His journey, we talk about his challenges to his triumphs. We talk about purpose and passion and, what lights you up. And so he really speaks to people from college age up about, what are your purposes, live out your passions and all the things. So great conversation for empty nest moms as we're going into this new chapter and we don't know what to do or we're unsure who we are. These are all just great things that we talk about. And I know you guys are going to get some really good takeaways. So let's get into it. Hope you guys like it. Hi, welcome back to the show today. I'm super excited to have on Jorge Gonzalez. I think that we're going to have a fabulous conversation. He's very unique. He's an author. He's a realtor. It seems like he's dabbled in a lot of different things. And so I'm really curious and excited to get to know him and see how he's pivoted so many different times throughout his life. So welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Robin. Thank you so much for having me on. I feel humbled to be on your show.
Oh, thank you. It's going to be fun. If you want to just start, I would love for the audience to get to know you a little bit better. If you want to just kind of fill us in on your journey so that we can kind of go along with you on your ride.
Yeah. So basically, I am a published author of a book called Answer the Call. Answer the Call is about finding your gifts, your talents, and pursuing your life's purpose. I'm also a real estate agent in Southern California. I'm also an inventor of a batting machine that we call the Batting Pro, and also a public speaker. I go to colleges and universities to motivate and inspire the next generation.
Well, that is a lot of diverse things, but I absolutely love that. That's so cool because, I think what that really tells us as humans is that we're multifaceted, right? We have multiple gifts, but I feel like in life, a lot of us figure out one gift and we feel like we have to stick with that gift and never shift and pivot. So first of all, congratulations on your book. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about that book. Why did you decide to write it? And when did you decide to write it? And what was really the motivation behind it?
Well, when the original seed was planted 25 years ago,
No.
25 years ago, my father was given 6 months to live. I took him to a UC university where they had specialists for organs and whatnot. And this particular doctor was a liver specialist because of his alcoholism. His liver was pretty shot out. And the doctor actually told me to tell my dad that he had 6 months to live because my father didn't speak English. And so I looked at my father and I told him, Dad, the doctor just told me that you had 6 months to live. And he looked at me with this look in his eye, like a complete shock. And we just rushed out of the doctor's office. And on walking to my car with my dad and my little sister, because my little sister was with me, I was like, my family's about to go through the most painful experience that my family has ever encountered. And this is not going to be an easy thing for us. But this situation with my father, this story has to be told because the pain is going to be so overwhelming that it's almost going to be unbearable for us. And that's really when the seed was originally planted, because I wanted to talk about the stories about alcoholism or substance problems and the effects and the damage that it causes, not just for that individual, but also collateral damage, the family, the kids, and anyone that's so close to you, because they suffer with you too, if not even more or worse, because as you pass away, they're left with the burden behind them. So that's when the seed was originally planted 25 years ago.
And so for the next 25 years, you didn't write it little bits at a time, right? You kind of lived life and did different things.
So basically, as I was going through my journey from the 25 years, I'm 50 now. So for the last 25 years, I would jot down like things that would really touch my heart, stories that I knew were important for me, that I want to make sure that I shared those stories with my daughter and my grandkids and whatnot, so they can know what it was like to live for myself. And then of course what my daughter was going to also experience, because my daughter was right behind me. My daughter was born when when I was 25. That's when my daughter was born, when I was 25. So my daughter experienced that pain with my father, and that void, my daughter experienced that with me. So I always knew that there's certain stories that I wanted to talk about.
So you're kind of collecting along the way.
Yeah,
I love
basically
that.
I was connected. Yeah, exactly.
I love that. So answer the call. What does that mean to you?
Answer the call. So I'm also an inventor. So in 2021, during the pandemic, I was finalizing the title of the book, and I was gonna call it American Inventor. And I was on the phone with my publishing company, and I heard this most powerful, sweetest voice you would ever hear in your life. And there's no mistake of whose voice that was. And then it got me by surprise. And then I heard it again, answer the call. And then I said it out loud, answer the call. And my publishing company asked me, George, what is that? That's the title to the book. Where did you get that from? It was just whispered to me. Okay, we're scrapping American Inventor and we're going with Answer the Call because that is the title. That's exactly how it happens. And that's what we went for. 2 weeks later, it came to me that Answer the Call means that we're being called to follow our gifts or talents and pursue our life's purpose. That's what Answer the Call means. And it's not my message. It was the message that was planted in my heart, in my soul, and in my spirit.
I love that. And that's so important, because I think as we age, my podcast is primarily women, not excluding men, because I'm sure there are a few listeners, but it is primarily women. And as women, and when you're a mom, it's like you go through life and you have children, and some of your priorities shift a little bit because you are caring for, taking, and this happens to dads also, but we shift in where we are and what we do for ourselves. And sometimes that passion and that purpose gets put down on the list, right? It's down really, really low. And sometimes we forget about it. Sometimes we just keep squashing it down because we're busy. We're like super busy doing a bunch of other things. And we forget to really put the intention on the gifts that we have been given. And so when you're talking to somebody who doesn't realize what their gifts are or their passions, or they've forgotten, like, what are a few of the things that you could suggest to people to discover those things?
Well, I've had many instances where somebody would tell me, George, I don't think I have a gift or a talent, or I definitely don't believe that I have a life purpose. And then I ask them some simple questions. What do you like to do? What are you good at? And what would you want to do for the rest of your life if money was not an option? And the moment I ask those three questions, something is triggered. And then you start thinking and like, oh my God, I love to do this. And I love to do that. I love spending time. I really enjoy doing this. And I would want to do this. And it's funny because those three questions and those three things, those answers are intertwined. Mm-hmm. So I tell this on many podcasts as well too, that a lot of people around the world have so-called hobbies. Society has dummied down a gift and a talent and called it a hobby, so we don't know the significance behind that. But I don't know how to draw, I don't know how to paint, I don't know how to write music. The so-called hobby things, I have no gifts in that. But what I do know now is that those hobbies are not a hobby, they're gifts. I'm a very passionate individual. I love to teach and mentor and coach by stories. That's how I teach.
Amazing.
And when I wrote the book, I realized that my life purpose was to motivate, inspire the next generation and anyone looking to find their gifts, talents, and pursue their life's purpose, because God has planted these seeds in me and these projects and these adventurous times with being a real estate agent, with being an inventor, with being a published author, and being being a speaker. And all these things are intertwined, and I talk about them in my book.
I love that. And I think I love the conversation of hobby, because I think there is a big confusion between your gifts and a hobby, because a hobby, people have defined in the past a hobby as something you like to do that's not lucrative, that's not going to go anywhere. It's just what you enjoy doing. And that's fine. There are some things that you may just personally want to do for yourself. It's your creative outlet kind of thing. But what people don't get is that those very simple things are not simple, like you said, to other people. And so if you took a hobby and you thought about how you could manifest it and grow it into a business, that just changes kind of the game about it. And I think you have to be creative, and you have to have a gift or something, which everybody does have. I mean, I don't believe anybody is born without having gifts. It's just discovering those gifts. It's being open to receiving what they are, and then trying to figure out what to do with them, because sometimes people have lots of gifts. And so you have to like hone in and take one at a time. But if you're someone that's listening to the podcast and you've been on autopilot for the last 20 years and you've just been working and grinding and all the things, and you don't have a quote unquote hobby, you don't do something for yourself, this is a great opportunity to listen and get answer your call, right? It's, see what lights you up. Where do you find passion? Where is your purpose? It could be as simple, if you're like an animal person and you love cats, I mean, it could be as simple as, cat sitting for somebody. Although it seems so silly. I don't like cats. I would never go. I don't know why this brought, but it's like, I would never be a cat sitter. Like it would not, but, and then somebody who's super creative that can paint and draw, it's like, they think that their drawings aren't good, but then I'm looking at it like that's a masterpiece, because I could never do that. So I think I really love to discover what other people's gifts are when I see them using it, because I'm always fascinated, because it's things that don't really resonate with me. And so I love to learn from other people. So I'm so glad that you brought that hobby situation or that talk up, because I do feel like as moms, we're so busy working and volunteering and doing everything for our kids. And although that's very fulfilling and it brings lots of joy, we really forget, what do we like to do? And so if you're somebody, again, who is just stepping into that new phase of life, where you have older kids and you've got a little bit of free time, ask yourself those questions that George, just said. Can you repeat those 3 questions again so people can think about them?
So basically, what do I like to do? What am I good at? And what would I want to do for the rest of my life if money was not an option? And those 3 are very powerful questions. Yeah,
they are. I really love those questions. And I'll drop those in the show notes. So if you're driving or anything, walking, and you don't have a pen or a pencil, you'll be able to see them. So I know this comes up a lot, where, okay, well, I really am passionate about this. And they might start, to dabble in it and to work in it a little, and then they hit the roadblock, because there's roadblocks along every journey, right? And so when people look at a roadblock, what are some ways that you help people to kind of move around the barricades and work with them rather than against them?
Yeah. So basically, when every time I'm up against an obstacle or a roadblock, I remember, why did I get started? Why did I really start this journey? Now, my family is here in the United States because of a sacrifice that my grandfather did back in World War II. He migrated from Mexico to the United States under a work agreement between Mexico and the United States when the Americans were fighting World War II. So he sacrificed his family. He barely had gotten married with my grandma. He had a newborn baby and a 1-year-old baby, and he left his country. When I first heard about that story, it humbled me, and it made me very emotional, and it made me proud that my grandfather would make such sacrifice for his family And I don't mean just his family, his wife, my grandma, and his 2 kids. I mean myself, his grandkids, because his whole lineage he made a sacrifice for. So every time I'm up with an obstacle, I remember that sacrifice is that everything that I'm working on, whether it's the battle machine, my real estate, now the book, and now the speaking, and all my life in general, is in honor of him, because I truly believe his sacrifice, it will never be in vain. So anything that's headed my direction and I tackle, and I'll be honest with you, there's times where I want to give up, but then I remember, no, I'm doing this not for me, not for self. I'm doing it for my grandfather. I'm doing it for my grandmother, for that sacrifice that they both had, because they both sacrificed themselves. My grandfather for coming, and my grandma for staying by herself and taking care of her 2 kids. So some people call it the reason why. I call it that's the foundation of my life and everything that I'm building. So you have to have a solid foundation. Once you have a solid foundation, I can assure you, you will not give up.
Right. And, I think I love that. And I love the way you look at things and, looking at things in that particular way really gives meaning to all that you do.
Mhm.
And for someone who might run up against something and feel like they want to run, they do have to kind of dig. I think it's a lot of inner work.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a lot of reflection inside, and running from something or stopping something because of a roadblock usually signifies something else that's happening that we're not recognizing.
Mhm.
So whether that is we feel defeat, whether it feels shame comes up, whether you know, different emotions will really surface, but
Mhm.
instead of facing those emotions, we kind of shut them down. So
Yeah.
I think that's a very valid thing. You have to find a connection and your why. It is your why, but your why is your foundation,
It's a
right?
foundation.
It is the reason why we keep stepping forward every day. So when we come up against, I always look at blocks as opportunities for growth. It's always an opportunity for growth, because you're going to have self growth, because you're going to reflect. There are some things in life when we come up against them, it might make us discover that that's not for us, right? And that's okay. And others might make us pivot and realize I'm kind of done with that. And now I need to move, the other way. And something like a story as you're talking, like for me, I always knew like I wanted to work with children. Like when I was growing up, I always wanted to be a teacher. And so that's what I became. And I didn't really kind of look outside of that, like how and what other ways I could work with children, because I didn't have a lineage of teachers in my family.
Mhm.
So that was what I went with.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I enjoyed it. But then I started to really work with adults and train them on how to integrate stuff into the curriculum. And I saw like this whole different, door open up. And I never really planned on that. It
Mhm.
was just taking the one step of courage to train something out of my comfort zone really led me to something different, and my ability to work with adults. And so that was kind of that first stepping stone. Then I became a parent, and that changed my whole entire life, right? That like
Mhm.
opened up in so many doors and challenges and had me walking through. And when I came to the other side of that journey, it was like, how do I put all that together, right? How do I had during my mothering time, I became very interested in health and wellness. And so I kind of allowed that door to kind of open and expand me. And then I was like, okay, well, I can put that all together. And if you would have asked me 5 years ago, well, you'll have a podcast, I would have been like, I would never have a podcast. Like, that's not for me. But it was like, as I just kept having courage and stepping into different things and allowing opportunities to come. And I think that's where people kind of struggle sometimes, because they want everything very cut and dry, and they don't want to kind of release to allow in. And so if you're someone that's trying to answer your call and find your passion and your purpose and what's next for you, we have to, allow and for that energy to open so that you can receive and figure out what your gift and your next step in your journey is. Because whether you've been a mom, momming is a gift,
Yeah.
being a CEO of your home is a gift. All of those things are gifts and talents that we don't consider gifts and talents because it's just what we do on a daily basis. So I think we have to learn to celebrate ourselves, really, and like all the little things that we
Mhm.
do, to then realize the bigger picture of the purpose. And I think serving people, whether you're serving your children, whether you're serving in your business, whether you're serving on a stage, whatever it might be, we're all here for that purpose in some way, shape, or form. So it's just recognizing where your little golden nugget is in that big, life puzzle, I guess. So if you could like maybe think of a time when, for example, how did you come up with like the pitching thing? Like, where did that come in? Because it just doesn't seem like it fits in, but I'm sure it does. How did that get started? I'm curious.
The batting machine really saved my life.
Oh,
I was unemployed after the market crash, the real estate market crash in 2008, 2009. I was in warehouse distribution and logistics. That was my job in management. And I lost my job and I was unemployed for 3 years. Within about a year and a half in, my daughter asked me to sign her up for softball trials. And I said, sure. So I took her, and all the little girls were picked except for my daughter and like 9 other little girls. So it was pretty heartbreaking that I saw the eyes of my little daughter and said, her eyes told me, Daddy, I want to play. Not playing is not an option. And I can see it in her eyes. So I looked up to one of the parents. I go, look, I understand you've coached before. I will commit myself to being the assistant coach if you're the actual coach, because clearly your daughter's not going to play either. So it's not an option for my daughter not to play, and I'm sure it's not an option for your daughter not to play. So let's partner up together and let's just coach this team here. Let's just build this team. So he agreed, and out of the frustration of wanting to really make my daughter shine on the field, I went out looking for a device to really hone on her skills. And the frustration, we didn't find anything. So one day at 3 o'clock in the morning, I wake up and I had this image in my mind of a machine. So I sketched it out. I went to sleep and I woke up in the morning and the sketch is right there next to me. And I'm like, okay, that wasn't a dream.
That's right.
And then so I took my daughter to school. I picked her up, and then I was looking at the sketch, and then my daughter said, Daddy, what is that? Well, baby, this is a machine I'm going to build for you. And then she's like, well, shouldn't it do this? Shouldn't it have this? How come I can't do this? So I resketched it and I built a prototype. So my daughter became the co-inventor at that time. So, which is why I'm so passionate about the batting machine. So I built a prototype for her. She became a 5-time All-Star, 1-year Rookie of the Year, 1-year MVP, and she transitioned from slow pitch to fast pitch in high school, playing JV freshman and sophomore year, all because of that batting machine. And so that whole process and that whole journey pulled me out of this depression state that I was in because I was unemployed for so long. And I felt worthless because I'm supposed to be the breadwinner, and I'm overqualified for everything because the market was like a mess back then. Right. So that machine and that journey with my daughter, coaching her, whatnot, that really saved my life. Being engaged fully 100% with that process of her, and the smile that I can see, the happiness, the energy that I can see from her, it changed her life forever. So she was also a honor roll student. She just graduated from Long Beach University with business marketing degree.
That's amazing.
All because that's the level that I raised her through that process of her softball.
I love that. I mean, my gosh, that's a whole nother story in itself. That's just like giving me goosebumps. And what I think so amazing about that is, again, challenge becoming an opportunity. You were faced with a big challenge, and losing a job, is out of our control sometimes, especially when we have a market that crashes. Having a passion for your child and trying to make sure your child has what they need really gave you another gift, right? It gave you something, and obviously you had the ability and skill to draw something out and then get a prototype of it.
And I don't draw. I don't draw.
Sketch.
So it was just sticks.
You're like, this is what I want. But to be able to take that and run with it and make it a business, but not even that part of it, but allowing your daughter an opportunity that she would not have otherwise had, and then seeing her shine, being an underdog and being brought up. I mean, that's just a winning story altogether. I mean, that's just amazing. And
she has an amazing story to tell.
100%. And that story tells her that having a little bit of courage and taking a chance sometimes works out.
Yes.
And If it doesn't, you pivot and you move to the next thing. So again, I think in life we forget to take chances. We forget to show our courage because we think everything has to be all formulated and you're only successful when you meet X, Y, and Z. And it's like, no, it's what you want out of it. It's what you make out of it. If you're someone that's listening and you're kind of floundering and you're not sure, don't look at anything as this is it forever. Look at it as a stepping stone. And what can that do for you at this time? If it brings you joy and that's what it brings you, and that's the point of it, great, because joy is not easy to find it when you're in a place that you think that you're stuck. Mm-hmm. So, good for your daughter. I mean, I'm so happy for her, and I'm happy for her that not only was she able to be afforded that opportunity, but she took it and she really ran with it. And as in life, that will serve her so well. Better than if she would have made the other team, right?
She was committed,
right? Because she knew what she was up against, and she's like, I'm in. I'm going to grind this thing, and I'm going to show you that you didn't pick the right person, But it's like that is the journey she needed to make her become who she is. And and again, I mean, that answering the call, that's all the name of that book. I'm so glad you changed it because it just wouldn't have even resonated the same if it was the other name. So
no, I believe that as well, completely. Yes, absolutely.
I love that. And I think what I'm also very thankful for is that you're actually going and speaking to young adults, because this is a huge missing piece for our children, because most of, at least my children, they're being raised in a society where you need to know what you're going to do tomorrow. You need to know it fully at 16. You need to make this score to get in here. It's like you need to do all these things. And in reality, no, you don't. Yeah. You don't. School is very different than it once was, and people are making up jobs based off of their passion and off of their purpose. And they're very entrepreneurial now, which I think does have a little bit to do with like the weird influencer thing that I don't fully understand because it's not my, lingo and all that. But I really feel like they've kind of put permission out there for people to sort of make up stuff. And as long as you have a purpose behind it and somebody wants your service or your need or your whatever, you can make anything happen. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think that's the benefit I think our kids have. But I think they're also put in this box of, in order to get here, you must do X, Y, and Z. And so I don't know. I think everything's shifting. So I'll be so interested to see in the next 10 years, kind of how all of that plays out. Mm-hmm. But the amount of stress that some of our kids go through thinking that they have to be here, it's a lot of stress. So, I want to anybody that's listening that has kids in this age bracket, just remember they also are going to pivot in life. Most people don't stick with the same thing, and that's okay. We want to foster and encourage them to try things and to find out what their purpose and passion is. And it's interesting that you're talking about that in your book, because one of the conversations I have with my kids is when you're looking at going to college, when you're trying to pick something you think you might want, I don't want you to pick something based off of a salary. I don't want you to pick something based off of, well, maybe you're good at it. I want you to pick something that really, truly lights you up, because that's where you're going to find the most success. That's where you're going to be driven the most. That's where you're going to want to keep waking up every day and going to work, not based off of just because you're so smart, you should be, a brain surgeon. I mean, if that's your passion, great. Yeah, but if you're just good at it, and it doesn't light you up, you're not going to be happy in the end. So
those are the questions that I asked my daughter when she was in high school. She asked me, she said, "Daddy, I want to go to college, university, but I don't know what to take." I go, "Look, baby, what touches every single industry?" She's on business. Mm-hmm. What also touches every single industry? Marketing. But the reason I asked her those questions is because she was selling chips to her softball team at the very beginning. So she sold chips for like 7 years. So I would take her to the store. I gave her the first seed money to buy a packet of chips and Gatorade and whatnot, and she just kept turning that money over. So that's when amazing. She said business marketing, these are subjects that she understands, and these are subjects that she's really passionate about. So when she decided to take business marketing, I knew that she was going to do something that she really wanted to do, was business marketing.
That's awesome. And I'm glad you gave her that experience also. So she's been blessed to have you as a dad, because you definitely have shown her a different path and how to be resourceful. And I think that's another thing we forget. It's like we need to get gritty and get resourceful to be able to move forward in life.
Yeah, our kids need to be raised. I mean, I was raised to earn my own way, and that's how I raised my daughter, and my daughter's my only child. So, I mean, it might have seemed at the beginning that was a little too hard on her, possibly because she's a girl. But at the same time, if daddy was gone, I wanted to make sure that my daughter could be able to support herself, not only just financially, but mentally and spiritually also. So the last thing I would want is like, oh my God, I left my daughter behind, and then she has to fend for herself.
Right.
So if the strong figure is not there, you have to become strong figures yourself. So that's how I raised her. And then, of course, when I was there, she would allow me to be the strong figure when I was there with her. But when she wasn't, when I was around her, she knew that I have to scan everywhere, be careful of my surroundings, because we're living in a very crucial, evil world.
Weird.
And I raised her to know that.
Yeah, of course, because that's the truth. Well, if kind of as we start to wrap up, I want to encourage anybody out there that is kind of wavering and not sure where they're at. I think this is a great book to pick up. I think if for nothing else, it will start your wheels turning. It will give you something to think about. If you work for a university, if you have an older group of children that you create events for, I definitely would hire George, to come in, because I think have a lot of valuable things to share. And I think that older kids all the way to adults could definitely learn something from you. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing. And I'm so glad, and again, so thankful that you wrote your book, because I really think it's very impactful for people to start to understand what their call actually is. Before we end, I always end with asking, this is a health and wellness podcast, and obviously your well-being is part of health and wellness. And so what I wanted to ask you was, on your day-to-day basis, what are a couple of things that you implement? We call them 1% shifts that creates like the wellness that you look for in your life.
So I have a herniated L5 disc from a work-related accident. So my thing every morning, and I stretch out and I focus on my core, because if my body is not functioning at a certain level, I will be horrible the rest of the day. So if I don't stretch my spine, I'll be tired, in pain, having to pop pills, and I'm not going to do that. Okay. I drink my protein shake, I exercise, I meditate, I pray, and I do not allow any negativity come to me at anything, because I need to be focused 100%, that I know that my day is going to be successful, because I'm removing everything that's negative from my life. I'm only keeping the positive things in my life. And this is physically, mentally, and spiritually, because I have to be in, what's the word I'm looking for? In line to those.
Alignment.
They have to be in alignment, because if it's not, I will hate my day. And then that will transfer for a week, and then will transfer for a month. And guess next thing you know, you have a couple of bad years already.
I love that. I like that you can recognize that that is what you need to be in alignment, but also what it feels like not to be in alignment. Because I think when you know what it feels like not to be, after you've had the taste of what it is to be, you really, I call those dips, but you get back up from that dip and you get back on your horse immediately, because oh, I do not want to feel like that. That's not in my space any longer. And I love that. I think it's a needed conversation to kind of make that space around you to keep the negativity out, because our world is, I feel like 80% negative. It could be, if you allow that to come into your space. So
absolutely. I mean,
these are great practices.
The world could be falling apart around me, and I pay no attention to it, because I'm only focused on what I can control. And my focus is being in alignment. And some people will tell me, George, didn't you hear about this? It's like, honestly, it doesn't affect me immediately. I don't care. My focus is here in my mental state, anything that I can control. Now, if I walk towards something and I see something, I'm going to have to confront it. But I'm not going out looking for anything that's negative, because sadly, a lot of people are doing that. They're looking for negative information, and I'm not doing that.
I don't necessarily know if they're looking for it, but they're attracted to it because they are not open to receiving the flip side of that.
Yeah.
So people who have a lot of negativity coming towards them, I would encourage them to try to refrain and push some of that out and see what actually shows up instead. And then when you figure out what that is that shows up, that lights you up better, and you start training your mind again in a different way, you will want to receive that other stuff rather than the negativity. That's a process in itself, right?
Yes.
So that's for another episode that we can get in. Thank you so much for coming on. I truly enjoyed, and I was very honored to meet you. And I definitely, you guys can check out in the show notes. There'll be a link for the book, his Instagram, and just all the stuff that we talked about that was really helpful and beneficial that we can all walk away with today to create our little 1% shifts, to create the best and healthiest and happiest versions of ourselves. So until next time, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, George.
Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today we're going to be having a conversation with Jorge Gonzalez, who's a multifaceted entrepreneur. He's an inventor, an author, and a motivational speaker. His journey, we talk about his challenges to his triumphs. We talk about purpose and passion and, what lights you up. And so he really speaks to people from college age up about, what are your purposes, live out your passions and all the things. So great conversation for empty nest moms as we're going into this new chapter and we don't know what to do or we're unsure who we are. These are all just great things that we talk about. And I know you guys are going to get some really good takeaways. So let's get into it. Hope you guys like it. Thanks for tuning in today. I loved being here with you. I hope that you got something from today's episode. I'd love to hear what resonated with you. Drop a comment below, and if you feel led to, download the episode and share it with someone you love that needs to hear this message. As we continue to spread the goodness of this podcast, I'd love for you to help us by leaving a review on Apple Podcast or a rate on Spotify. As we increase listeners, we will come up more often when women are searching for podcasts to listen to. To stay connected with me, you can check out my social media pages at Live Life Balanced with Robin. You can check out my website at livelifebalancedwithrobin.com. You can book a discovery call. And if you're looking for a way to get started right now, you can opt in for my new quick guide for the empty nester refresh. And as always, thank you for letting me be part of your day. It truly means a lot that you're allowing me to be on your wellness journey with you. Until next time, find peace, love, and light by breathing, being present, and allowing for all possibilities to happen.